Today on Locked On Canadiens, yes, the Canadiens are down in the series and on the brink of elimination, but their top line is not only one of the best lines in this series, but one of the best lines in the playoffs. Let's talk about it.
You're Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into episode 1298 of Locked On Canadiens. Thank you so much for listening and for making us your first listen of the day, for subscribing wherever you get your podcast. Doing that supports the show and ensures you do not miss an episode. A special shout out to our Caps fans who have joined us to, help spike our engagement a little bit and jump in our comments and, just be really nice and put money in our pockets. Just search out this show and keep that ad revenue flowing. So appreciate it. Keep those comments going, you guys. We really love them. Today's episode is brought to you by the Amazon Fire Stick. Turn any TV into your Xbox. No console required. Head to amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to learn more. My name is Ian Boisvert, also known as that. Maybe it's Ian. And I'm joined, as I always am, by the active stick, Laura Saba. Laura, how are we doing today?
It's Monday when we're recording this. The world could look very different tomorrow. It is election day in Canada as we're recording this. But a couple of my friends had a theory as to why, the next game we have to wait all the way until Wednesday. And some people thought it might have been due to that schedule. But I believe there's still Canadian teams playing tonight. So I'm just excited that you did a math so I wouldn't have to.
Yes, today is very number centric, as a lot of these in between episodes have been. When we've had the ability to do so, we want to dive in and look at what's going on in this series, why things are happening the way they are, and if the so to speak, the stats match the eye test. That's always the sort of lens that we want to look at these numbers through. So we'll get to some of those. I have three big numbers I want to talk about that kind of define how this series has gone. I want to talk about the Montreal Canadiens top line because not only is it, through 4 games of the playoffs, one of the best, if not the best line in this series, it is among, if not the best line in the National Hockey League in the playoffs. So we'll talk about the boy genius line a little bit more. And we'll start here, though. We'll start with some off-day injury updates. And I say that tongue-in-cheek because there were no updates. But there's still... there are still repercussions to talk about with the fact that there are no updates. Let's start in net. Sam Montembeault, the Canadiens, no update today. They did not skate. They did not practice. They're traveling back to Washington. They'll skate on Tuesday as you're listening to this. Montembeault not being around, Laura, it means that the Canadiens are one more injury away from Caden Primo in net for a pivotal game. It also means that we're probably going to see Jakub Dobes again unless, Montembeault is able to practice and get up to speed. What's your confidence level in the goaltending if Montembeault continues to be injured?
I think Jakub Dobes is not going to allow as many goals as he did in the previous game. I do think that he is suffering from an element of nervousness. He's not that cocky, really pestering, bothersome guy that we saw when he first made the team. And I understand why. The stakes were a lot lower at the time, right? Like they were at the very, very beginning of that upswing that we saw over the course of, December, January. I feel like the stakes here are so high that you are seeing his nerves. But at the same time, I don't think that I don't see any reason. Sorry, there's no reason in my mind why he can't turn it around and become that guy again. Right. Mm-hmm. And so I'm feeling cautiously optimistic. Now, if there's another injury and we see Caden Primo in net, we already know Caden Primo is either spectacular or absolutely abysmal. So it's really 50-50 if Caden Primo is the one starting that game. I think it's really interesting, though, with Samuel Montembeault. They're saying he's day-to-day and they're not disclosing his injury. I'm wondering if it's just something that he tweaked, and so they do actually have hope for him to come back. But at the same time, I don't know. It's one of those things where, like, they have to win the next game. So there's potentially only one game to like do this gamesmanship. I don't think that they're joking around or messing around. I really think that they're hopeful that he is truly day-to-day and he's coming back.
Yeah, they haven't done the whole we're gonna skate both of them at practice and we're gonna throw a smoke screen up and not let you know which one is playing. They're just like, look, Montembeault's hurt, right? He's out day to day. I have a lot of confidence in Dobes, especially after last game. Funny enough, he only gave up 3. And one of them was there was only really one of them where I'm like, yeah, you should have made that save. And that was the first goal of the game where the puck rolled right to him. And instead of jumping on top of it, he kind of just let it keep rolling and then gave up a rebound. And it was not his finest moment. But the rest of that game, I thought he was fantastic. I thought he made a number of really big saves. I think he was forced to make more than Logan Thompson because the Canadiens' effort was not there offensively. Logan Thompson really just made the one big save on Suzuki in the first period. Like there were a few 10-bell saves from Dobes throughout this game. Like I'm not worried about him at all in net. The injury I am worried about is to one Alex Carrier. I would imagine he's dealing with a couple of injuries in this one because he left early in the game after that Ovechkin run where he nearly put himself into the bench. And then
that looked like lower body. It looked like something leg related. And the other one entirely did not look like that. The other one looks like either concussion or whiplash.
Yeah, and really quick on the hit that took him out. I think a lot of people it is a hit to the head. It's a hit to the head that the NHL allows. Let's be completely clear about that. I would like to see hits to the head removed entirely, especially in cases like that one where I think contact with the head was avoidable, but the NHL rules are the way they are. I'm not saying, anything else. He did hit him in the head. He made contact with his head. It's funny that that's the only part of the game where it matters that you hit a shoulder first, right? Like if I were to high stick somebody and I clip their shoulder and then, cut open their face from their cheek to their eye, I'm still getting a 4-minute penalty. There's no, well, you hit him in the shoulder first. I always find that funny that with body checking, we've made that distinction, but with a stick, we don't. At any rate, we're not doing that anymore. Carrier is a big loss for Montreal. I think he's been Montreal's best defenseman in this series.
Absolutely agree. 100%. He's played at a level that the others have had to aspire to and keep up with, which I really love that too, right? Like he knew exactly where to be. And I know there's a lot of people talking about, the way he takes hits and all of that. He looks practiced in taking hits, right? He looks like he knows what he's doing on that front. And yes, there's a lot of questions as to, well, this is what's going to happen if he does that, right? But, he's not being taken out of the game when he gets hit, except for that last time, right?
Yeah, I thought he's done a really good job of avoiding contact. He does get hit a lot, but he minimizes it a lot by getting out of the way. He's incredibly efficient defenseman. Like I'm very happy with the fact that Alex Carrier is in Montreal and he's under contract for I think a couple more years after this one. And that contract is really great. Like I'm very excited about the player that they have here. He's a tremendous loss. And the reason, that I think you can say he's been Montreal's most potent defenseman is that Washington has been going after him. Not in like I'm not accusing them of like any kind of gratuitous violence. They're finishing their checks on a guy who's incredibly effective.
Yeah.
And that's been clear since game 1 that he's been a target for them to finish their check on to try to wear him down because he is undersized. He's a smaller guy. And he is just such an efficient defenseman moving the puck out of the zone, erasing issues that are going on around him. That to me is the largest loss because it means that, they're going to have to bring in Jaden Struble and bring him into the lineup. I know some people have said, Cole Reinbacher up. Absolutely not.
No.
There's no benefit in that. Just leave him. They're being super, careful with him in Laval. There's no shot he plays in Montreal. So everybody,
especially not against this Washington team.
No,
there's no way.
No, do you want him to miss the start of next season too? Like that's what you're kind of asking for.
He's not even fully recovered right now.
Yeah. I also want to point out one more thing about the Carrier hit, and it's that everybody wanted Arbor Xhekaj in the lineup because it was this idea that he was a deterrent, and he kept players from running around and doing dumb stuff. Well, Arbor Xhekaj was in the game, and Carrier got hit. That is not me blaming Arbor Xhekaj for this. That is me reiterating the point that we've made in the past, which is that having Arbor Xhekaj does not eliminate the possibility for this happening, nor does it seem to really, keep a player like Tom Wilson at bay. It did not deter him from doing that. In fact, it might have exacerbated the problem with a lot of the warm-up shenanigans that were going on. So I think
And
we can.
I'm sure
At
he
this
was
point,
yapping too. I'm sure he was
yes.
yapping.
And at this point, I think we need to put that to bed. That idea that if Arbor Xhekaj is there, guys will take fewer runs. I think we're done. We need to give up the ghost on that when it's over.
Right. And that's not to say that Arbor Xhekaj is not effective.
No, I
He's
thought he was
very
great.
effective. He was
We said he was great in
fantastic.
Game 4.
He was fantastic in game 4. He was okay in game 3. There were a couple of dicey moments.
Yeah.
But and yes, it's true a lot of the time that like the team says that he brings a lot of energy and all of that. But we don't need him to be there to punch faces. Sorry, I'm like getting ahead of myself. We don't need him to be there to punch faces. We need him to be there to be physical and to play defense. And when he's doing that, he's so effective. And even if he wanted to get involved in any kind of shenanigans, as you always point out, as soon as anything is going on, there could be 20 guys murdering each other on the ice. There could be like a trident or whatever, and there's 2 officials holding Arbor Xhekaj back, skating him away from everything, and he hasn't even done anything. Like he could be on the bench and they could just be standing in front of him being like,
He threw a glove in that scrum that was on the bench, which is so funny because that's like the least harmful thing you can do is throw a padded object at somebody. He was essentially starting a pillow fight. Like that's hilariously, like, I know the Caps were indignant about a glove being thrown. It's like, get a grip. There's 2 guys punching each other on the floor of your bench right now. There are bigger fish to fry. Anyway, all right, we'll leave the injuries and the replacements there. When we come back, I have 3 big numbers that I think sort of put this series in perspective and tell us a little bit more about the way the Canadiens are playing. And we'll get into those in just a minute. The Stanley Cup playoffs are here. And if you've never been to a live NHL playoff game, it's unlike anything else. The intensity, the speed, the energy in the building, it's next level. And thanks to Game Time, getting in the door is easier and more affordable than ever. Game Time is the fastest way to grab playoff tickets, even for those must-see matchups. Prices actually drop as puck drop gets closer, and with last-minute deals, you can save up to 60%. That's what I love most about Game Time. I can save up to 60% off buying those last-minute tickets, and it's not only just for sports, it's for concerts, comedy, theater. If you can buy a ticket for it, you can get it on Game Time. Their all-in pricing shows the total cost up front, so there's no surprise fees at checkout. The app even shows you panoramic seat views, so you know exactly what you're getting before you buy. And with Game Time ticket coverage, I know I'm protected, whether it's cancellation protection, job loss assurance, or their 24-hour return guarantee. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKDOWNNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right. Before we get too deep into this, because we always seem to forget now, we have to talk about the concept. Look at us. When we're not like sleep deprived and we have a chance to breathe, thanks to the NHL schedule giving us a day off, we can actually do our jobs pretty well. But it's the times where we can't, where we struggle. It feels like we've been doing back-to-backs for just back-to-backs with travel, even though I haven't left my house. So we have to talk about our contest on YouTube. We're running a subscriber contest. It only works if you are subscribed to this show on YouTube. So go ahead and hit subscribe and then go into the comments and write contest entry. We are giving away this signed photo of Josh Anderson. Lovely, lovely looking Josh there. And once we hit 4,500 subscribers on YouTube, so that's when we will do a drawing for that one. And we are giving away this Arbor Xhekaj signed photo once we hit 5,000 subscribers. So make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you go into the comments and write contest entry. 1 entry per person, and it will enter you for both drawings. So when we get to 4,500, we'll do a drawing. When we get to 5,000, we'll do another drawing with the same list plus whoever joined in that time. So good luck. Keep joining. Keep subscribing. We really appreciate it. Thanks so much for all your help.
Tom Wilson is currently making a bunch of alternate accounts so he can win that Josh Anderson picture.
If he helps us hit those round numbers, I don't really care. Bot away, Tom. I don't care. Anyway.
Listen, we're all obsessed with Josh's smile. It's not just you, Tom. It's all of us. I also really want to thank those Caps fans for listening through that last ad. Thank you for the dollars again.
Appreciate you guys. Yeah, they're just waiting for us to complain about referees again. Anyway.
Keep posting comments too. It really helps us.
Yeah. Oh, we would hate that so much, Laura, wouldn't we? Don't we hate that so much when the algorithm's like, feed us more comments? And we're like, no, we can't possibly ask for more comments from these people.
I don't need any more dollars. Too many dollars in my life.
So rich, Laura. I can't handle anything. Anyway. All right, that's enough of that. That was fun though. That was good. We needed to get that off our chest. I was just digging around looking for sort of some trends that I've been sort of had an inkling of, but wanted to get to nail down. So I have three numbers here that I think kind of tell the story of this series. The first one is 50, and that's 50%. 50% of the Canadiens' 5-on-5 goals against are from rebounds. Carolina is also at 50%. No one else in the league is higher. Half of the Canadiens' goals against at 5-on-5 come off of rebounds in front of the net, which I think speaks to two things, right? I think it speaks to the inexperience in net with both Dobes and Montembeault, but it also speaks to the inexperience in the D in front of him, who are not really so great at damage control when the puck is bouncing around there. I've noticed that they have a hard time getting the puck out of there, getting control of it, moving and getting the high danger stuff out of the way. Does that number sort of track with your experience of watching this playoff run?
Yes, absolutely. It also tracks with my experience of watching this defense all season long. They're an inexperienced defense. They are pretty young or pretty old, depending on which defenseman you're looking at. But it's not just clearing rebounds. Like, I think the Canadiens do have a little bit of difficulty, or a pronounced difficulty, just like executing defense in general, whether it's exiting the zone, whether it's clearing the rebounds, whether it's covering their man. And so we've seen a lot of that. None of this is surprising. And a lot of this, it's going to improve with not just changes in personnel. You've got David Reinbacher coming up, and those issues are things that he's actually good at, right? Like, he's not going to be scoring 40 goals a season, but those are things that he's good at. That sound defense is something that he's good at. So, for me, like, this tracks a young team, young defensive team. Everything just makes sense. And especially when you've got some potent offense, or even like a guy like Mangiapane, he's really good at like picking his spots and his moments. He's really good at finding space for himself. Like, 100%. This makes absolute sense. Also, I said you did a math. I think you did 3 maths. So
I did. There's more to come in the final segment too. We're going to talk about the Habs top line. None of those numbers are even included in these 3 numbers. So
you did a lot of math.
We're doing a lot of math here. Let's stick with the defense a little bit. The next number I have is 25 1/3. That is the percentage of capital shots at all situations that are unblocked, or I'm sorry, that is blocked. So 25 1/3% are blocked from the Caps. That's the second lowest in the playoffs, which means that the Canadiens are not blocking a lot of shots. Right? They were second in the NHL in the regular season in block shots, and now they're 15th out of 16 playoff teams in block shots. 29% of the Habs shot attempts are blocked, but that's like middle of the way. That's not really worth mentioning. But it is astounding to me that the Canadiens went from a team that blocked a ton of shots to now not doing that so much. I know the old adage with blocking shots, I forget, it was a blogger who posted this, but blocking shots is a lot like killing rats, where you probably don't want to have to do it a lot, but when you have to do it, you have to do it.
Yeah.
That sort of, is that like, because it seems like the Canadiens have controlled possession to a greater extent in this series than maybe anyone would have expected. Is the block shot rate going down worrisome for you?
I think a little bit, just because they were so good at it during the regular season. So it feels like they're changing up too much for the playoffs, that they're probably not even equipped to be playing. And so that kind of makes sense as well, that like with that 50 number that you were talking about a little bit, it feels like they're just not necessarily scrambling around, but they had gotten into a cohesive unit, even with all the injuries they had to deal with this season. And now all of a sudden that cohesive unit is falling apart.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's just that they played that way for so long this year, right? They blocked a ton of shots. It became part of their identity, and they've kind of gone away from it. And I don't know, like the 25.33, that's a rate. Like, that's not just a hard, here's the amount of pucks that go in. Like, that rate would stay the same had they, give up 40 shots, or, more so the 20 to 30 that they're giving up every night now. They're just not blocking as much.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a conscious effort from them to get out of the way and let the goalies see them. Even when Montembeault was in, he didn't give up one of those Montembeault from downtown goals. Like, that didn't happen. So I'm wondering if they're letting him see the puck more, and now letting Dobes see the puck more, and if that's a big part of the way that they're playing, because it just doesn't seem like they're blocking as many. But it also doesn't seem like a lot of them are getting to the net with any kind of danger from that far out, right? Like, it's very different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if they're chasing the Caps around.
Maybe a little bit of that, but I just think the Caps haven't really tried to fire anything from super deep either. Which is odd because anybody that has watched this Canadiens team knows that that's a pretty consistent way you can beat them is by just floating the puck from the point and it'll get through traffic and go in. All right, the last number I have here is 12.9. That is the expected goals for the Canadiens at all situations. They have 12.9 expected goals and 11 actual goals. So they're about 2 goals under what their expected rate was. The Caps are at 12.79, so a little bit less than the Canadiens, but they have 14 actual goals, which I think kind of matches because the Caps also have those, the 2 empty netters that they scored in Game 4. But it also shows a Canadiens team that has hung in there, right? They're right there with them. The series being 3-1 at this point is not really indicative of a lot of how the game has been played. The Canadiens have been right there with them the whole time. I think this expected goal number kind of gives us that indication, no?
Yeah, and I think that's why, games 2 and games 2 and 4 were such heartbreakers. I know that, game 1 was a loss in overtime, but I think game 2 was the one where it truly felt like they learned lessons and they were building upon it. And then game 4 really it was a 10-minute situation that really turned everything around. And I think the reason that the Canadiens are so disappointed and so heartbroken, and the reason the fans are, is because this hasn't looked this has looked much closer than anyone expected. This hasn't looked like a blowout, right? Even if it ends up like the Canadiens lose a series in 5 games, it's 4-1, whatever. It has not looked like a blowout on the ice. It's looked like a battle every single game. It's looked like a battle. And so, like making the Washington Capitals work for it, I don't think is a negative thing, right? Like we keep talking about the playoffs being school. This is as school as you can get.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I think it just shows how close this series actually is. And I think a lot of people who might not be watching the series are going to look at it and go, yeah, Caps are up 3-1. That makes sense. Like we expected them to be there. And while that aspect of it has made sense, the actual way that these games have unfolded has been rather shocking, rather surprising at the way that the Canadiens have really hung in there in these games. And it makes, I've said this a bunch, it gives us proof of concept that this could work, right? That the way that they're building this team can actually, bear fruit.
Yeah. Imagine they have a number 2 center. Imagine they have good defensemen. That's mean, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, more of these things, right?
More good defense. More good defense.
More. Yes, this team is going to be more. It's going to get more. So, I thought those 3 stats were pretty illuminating for me in looking at how this team has played. All right. Speaking of how this team has played, we're going to talk about the top line again. It's our most favorite subject right now because they're playing so well. Not only are they one of the best in this series, but they're one of the best in the playoffs so far. And when we come back, we'll tell you exactly why. The NBA and NHL playoffs are underway, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if that first bet wins. The FanDuel app is simple to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly, no more waiting around. I love how FanDuel makes betting super easy, whether it's picking my favorite team or diving into player props. From 3-pointers to steals to assists, FanDuel has so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Don't forget about the NHL, though. You can follow your favorite player with props like anytime goal scorer or your favorite teams by betting the money line. Plus, after the game kicks off, you can combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. All right, we're back. And the theme of all of these shows, really, since the Canadiens have made the playoffs, is, wow, they're a lot better than we thought, right? Like that's sort of where I think most of this fan base has gone to, most of the media covering this team has gone to, because it's just kind of astounding how well they've performed in this moment, despite the fact that we all kind of know they're not ready for it. And that's okay. And even though they're not ready for it, we're still seeing things like the Canadiens' top line of Nick Suzuki, Cole Caufield, and Juraj Slafkovsky being dominant. What are your thoughts about how that line has stepped up going into the playoffs? They were already great in the regular season, we know that, but they seem to have found another gear.
I think a lot of that key is not just Nick Suzuki and Cole Caufield elevating their game, And I do think that there was an element of fatigue over the course of the season after carrying the team on
Yeah.
their backs, really. But Juraj Slafkovsky has turned into a different player. And we've seen him do this before in international tournaments, right? He's a big game guy. And this is really like it's a combination of factors. I'm not surprised. I would have hoped that there would have been more depth, but I do find that Nick Suzuki and Cole Caufield, whoever they played with, was going to thrive. But I think it's perfect that in this moment in time, Juraj Slafkovsky is the one that's there.
Yes. And a lot of fans, have been hard on Slafkovsky. I mean, the whole time he's been here, really, but especially since Demidov came to Montreal, or it was looking like he was going to make it here. And it was, they were already taking Slafkovsky off of that line and putting him on the second line, and which is just like the kid's 19, like the Demidov, which is, it's funny. I have to classify which young player I'm talking about, but Demidov's so young, and we're seeing that he's having a hard time, like at 5-on-5 right now, right? We're seeing it. Maybe there's one day where it does happen, but for right now, this top line is excellent. I looked at the top 16 lines in the NHL based on ice time. So the top 16 teams with the most, top 16 lines rather, with the most ice time. Those are your top lines in the playoffs this year. There is no team that has more expected goals than Suzuki, Slafkovsky, and Caufield. They have 4.7. The next closest line is Lehkonen, McKinnon, and Marty Necas out in Colorado, and they're at 2.7. The Canadiens line is 2 goals better than them. To put that in perspective, the gap between the Habs top line, that Suzuki line, and the Avs top line, that McKinnon line in second, is the same as the gap between that Avalanche line in second and the Warren Foegele, Phil Deneau, Evan Moore line, I think it's Evan Moore line, in LA at 11th. So the gap between 1 and 2 is the gap between 2 and 11. They're lapping the league in expected goals. This line is dominating right now. Shot attempts, they're getting 65, I should say expected goals, 64.4% of the expected goals are with them on the ice. Shot attempts, 65.1% of the shot attempts while they're on the ice, 84 shot attempts for, 45 shot attempts against. They're third in the league in that category, behind just the Tkachuk line in Ottawa and the Hurdle line out in Vegas. So look, they're just statistically dominating. They're playing so well.
And I need to point out, they're not out there against bums. They're out there against the best defensive unit the Caps have.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, they're the Cap, and what's crazy is the Caps have continued to stick with that assignment, even though it hasn't made any sense, right? Like, maybe, I know that you think they're your best defenseman, and they probably are, but wouldn't you want to at least try something else and get Chychrun and Carlson against play other minutes? I find it so funny that they haven't tried to make an adjustment there at all, despite the fact that they have no answer for that Suzuki line.
I'll tell you what, though, I feel like if the series was not 3-1, then maybe it would be different. If the Canadiens had won that first game in overtime instead of lost it in overtime, Spencer Carberry would have made some adjustments, right? If the Canadiens hadn't allowed the Capitals to really take it to them in game 2, then, and I don't even remember now. It might be revisionist history. I feel like in game 1, the Caps dominated. Game 2, maybe not so much, maybe a little less. But if they had come back with a split, if it was 2-1 to Montreal, if it was 3-1 to Montreal, we would see adjustments. But because it's working, or that particular thing is not working, but the Caps are still winning, Carberry doesn't seem to see a reason to adjust.
Yeah, game 1, most of the team got shelled, but that Suzuki line was great. Mostly led by the second period onwards, where they kind of really took the play to Washington. I know a lot of that's score effects, but a lot of it is also just that line recognizing we have to be the ones to lead, and they did. I know we keep putting all of this in the perspective of the rebuild, right? We keep putting all of this success of that line and the play of this team in the perspective of how this rebuild can work. But if you're looking for reasons that it can work, that line is number one amongst them. The fact that Nick Suzuki has turned into that elite number 1 center, which he is, I won't hear anything to the contrary. We've seen the numbers already. Amongst centers, he was top 5 in points. There's no argument against it. And to see these guys elevate in the playoffs. It's not just that they're great, they're even better than they were in the regular season. Like Cole Caufield has stepped up in a meaningful way. Game 3, he tied for the most shots in a game for a single player in franchise history. And Juraj Slafkovsky is scoring goals. He's going to the net. He's played incredible. That line looks fantastic, whether it's them playing at 5-on-5 or on the power play, which now has new life with Montembeault, which looks fantastic. It's very, I know we're not doing the off-season stuff yet. We're not dead yet. We're not doing that.
Until the Habs are out, we're not.
Right. But it's impossible for me to watch this and not look at that line and go, that's going to be our number one line for years and years and years.
Oh, yeah.
And then we have this guy, Montembeault, on the second line. We're laughing. It's hilarious.
Yeah. And honestly, somebody posted it was a game of Canadiens lost. I think it was last game. They posted that power play is going to be a problem for the league in the future. Right? Yeah. And that power play, the same Montreal Canadiens power play that for 82 games we complained about, or, 82 games minus the 20 that Patrick Laine was thriving on it. So for 60 games or whatever we were complaining about, and now all of a sudden it's like that power play is going to be a problem for the league. And it absolutely is, because, it's much harder to contain than that the Patrick Laine not able to skate because he has half a knee.
Right.
So I find it's an exciting time, and it is very tempting right now to look at this and talk about the future, because that's what we've been doing for the past 3.5 years.
Yeah,
the Canadiens are not out. New. Yeah. The Canadiens are not out of the playoffs yet. When they are out, we will have those conversations just like we did for the past 3 years. But this time they're a lot more exciting because we got to see it in action against one of the top teams in the East.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's, we're trying to keep everything day to day, still talk about the series that's ongoing because it's not over. We get to see them play on Wednesday, but I look to the future because it's exciting, not because of the moment now being so dire, right? It's because we're excited to say, we're going to watch this line cook in the playoffs for years.
Yeah.
It's the whole, yes, there's some instant gratification in taking that in now, but there's this delayed gratification and looking outwards and seeing the fact that they're going to be great for a long time. It's exciting.
Yeah. And we can't get ahead of ourselves because there's still at least one game to be played. They do seem to be very determined to bring it back to the Bell Center for Game 6. So, hopefully they're able to do that, because I don't want to see this run end.
No,
I'm excited to talk about the offseason, but I still want to talk about how the Nick Suzuki line is the top line in the playoffs.
Yeah, I want to talk about more Cole Caufield goals. I feel like we did not get enough this year, even though we got a lot of them.
his teammates making fun of the sheer number of shots he had in the other game in Game 3.
Yeah, he was determined. It's good to see those leaders lead, right?
Yeah, they asked someone and he's like, "Oh, I think he had 100 shots. What was that?"
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's call it there, and let's hit our trivia and then head out of here. Yesterday's question: when Montreal went down 3-1 against the Capitals in 2010, who had the game-winning goal in Game 5 to kickstart the comeback for the Montreal Canadiens? Do you have the answer to this one, Laura?
Yes, it's my former future husband, Travis Moen.
It was Travis Moen. Corner gas star Travis Moen. He's on that television show. Yes, Travis Moen from Brian Giunta and Scott Gomez. It put Montreal up 2-0 in that game. Ovechkin scored in the third period to bring them within 1, but that was enough for the Canadiens to force Game 6 back home in Montreal. The answer was given to us correctly by Simon Hildebrandt. So congratulations. Thank you for playing along and for knowing your Travis Moen trivia. Today's question, we'll stick with Travis Moen because he had a very fun time in Montreal. I remember the Moen era fondly, regardless of the type of player he actually was. Travis Moen's first game with Montreal was eventful. He scored in his Habs debut, and he added 12 penalty minutes, including 2 fights, one against Jay Rosehill and one against this former Montreal Canadien. If you know the player that Travis Moen fought in his second fight of the game in that first game as a Montreal Canadien, put it down in the comments. Let us know how smart you are. We'll give you a shout out on the next episode of the show. And that's going to do it for us today on this episode of Locked On Canadiens. We want to thank you, Canadiens fans and Capitals fans, for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day, and for subscribing wherever you get your podcast. Doing that supports us and ensures you don't miss an episode. And Caps fans, I know you don't want to miss an episode. You love it here. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On NHL Game Night. Every game, every night, until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL, on YouTube, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. We're also available on Amazon Fire TV. on your Free Fire TV channel app. Click the Montreal Canadiens logo in the hockey section, and you can watch all of our episodes there as well. We are Locked On Canadiens just about everywhere we're posting things. Blue Sky, TikTok, Instagram, Locked On Canadiens, and all of those places. You can find me at Maybe It's Ian. You can find Laura at The Active Stick. Thanks so much for tuning in. We will see you guys tomorrow.